and welcome to the ASMR Review Show. Congratulations, you made it to 2025. Well done. Let's have a beer. This is the Little Red Truck Spruce Tip Ale from Red Truck Beer. It's a good old Christmas beer, eh? And I thought it would be extra Canadian with a thinking toque and extra film bro with this newly acquired Pulp Fiction shirt, because we are here to talk about movies, of course. The best way to approach the next year is to, drunkenly squint into the haze of the previous year and remember what it was that got released. Well, what did get released? We had some good movies, and we're going to go over them. But of course, we'll preface this that this is my list of movies, and I am a very biased individual. I know what I like, and I know what I don't like. Most of what's on this list was not a surprise to me where the rankings ended up. There were a few lovely surprises this year, but for the most part, if I went into a film thinking I wasn't going to like it, I didn't, and if I went into a film ready to love it, I did. I admit that I'm a biased individual in those ways, and this list will very clearly reflect that. So if you know who I am, you know exactly how this list is going to go. And if you don't know who I am, you'll probably figure it out by the end of it. So, yeah. Now, I know you're all excited to get into these movies, but just because it's 2025 doesn't mean this can't happen. If you thought we were just going to talk about my top 10 favorite films of the year, oh, I got some bad news for you. You got clickbaited. Because, much like last year, I want to talk about my favorite movies that were new to me that didn't come out in 2024. There's lots of movies I saw that were new for me, but they weren't new releases, and I think they deserve an equal mention. And some of these will perhaps surprise you that it was actually my first time watching them last year. But it's never too late to catch up on some classics. So let's go through these first, my 10 favorite non-2024 films of the year. Again, all movies that I had not watched in the previous year. First off, number 10 is Atomic Blonde, which I had meant to watch back when the Barbenheimer craze was coming out, because, Atomic Blonde, that's the name of the double feature. And I just didn't get around to it. And I finally did. And you know what? This is a pretty fun action movie. It's well shot. It's well directed. A lot of great needle drops. I really enjoyed it. I have a few little issues here with the film. I think after the big, one take shot that I know is not really one take, but it's still cool. After that, the film doesn't really reach those heights of that scene. Most of the needle drops feel pretty good and precise, but I felt Using Under Pressure by Queen and David Bowie, as good of a song as that is, felt out of place compared to the rest of it having this very, the 80s Berlin Eastern synthwave style. That song just kind of felt like it was there to be there, And no movie's going to top After Sun's use of Under Pressure. So, yeah. Number 9 is Escape from New York. Obviously, I went on a very big Metal Gear Solid binge this year, finally finishing and playing all of the games in the series. And of course, the thing that kicked that off was me finally watching Escape from New York, which is, of course, a movie that was a huge influence on the video games, to the point where when I met David Hayter and asked him, I met him at a con, I asked him about the connections, and he said he was even surprised they didn't get sued for that, But John Carpenter doesn't really care about that sort of stuff. I forgot to mention, this is like a nice, good, easy ale with a nice little cascade hops to it. Good stuff. But yeah, Escape from New York was fun. It's not like an action movie, more just like a dystopian sci-fi movie. I would say to call it an action movie seems wrong when there's not a lot of action in it. But it's just a vibe. I don't know. Like, I watched it and I had my headphones on and the soundtrack's kind of chill. And it's not like it's a chill movie, but just, I was really invested in it. And the soundtrack is top, of course, because it's a John Carpenter movie. And Kurt Russell's great, so yeah, that's a fun one. Good movie. Number 8 is Death Becomes Her. I actually didn't watch this because of the Sabrina Carpenter, Jenna Ortega music video. I just happened to watch it around the same time that everyone was coming back to this movie because that one music video that she did references it a lot. I was in the mood to watch something kind of spooky and fun, and I got a spooky, campy, insanely hilarious, comedic, campy masterpiece. And yeah, this movie's great. Like, I expected to have a little bit of fun with it. I didn't expect to be, like, blown away by how entertaining it was. So yeah, this was a good one. One of Bruce Willis's best roles. So well shot and well directed. Robert Zemeckis was on a whole other level in the 90s between this and Contact and Forrest Gump. Yeah, so it's a fun one. I really enjoyed it a lot. Just happened to be that I was jumping on the trend for that one. Number 7 is The Talented Mr. Ripley, one I'd always meant to watch because the character's named Ripley and I like Alien a lot, even though there's no connection. I actually went and watched this one based on the recommendation of Grace Van Dien. Well, that's Chrissy's actress from Stranger Things. But she had been referring to the book specifically, and there was a new Netflix show that came out with, what's his name? Andrew Scott, Moriarty from Sherlock. Apparently she actually wasn't the biggest fan of this movie, and Grace Van Dien was, but I watched it and I liked it because I haven't read the book, so I don't really have much to compare to on that. I was just like really into it. I liked the style to it. I got into it. What can I say? Sometimes you watch a movie and it's just like you get invested, and making you invested means you like it a lot. You know, it feels like forever ago since I watched this movie, but I would like to give it a rewatch. It was a pretty good one indeed. Number 6 is Time Bandits. So I went on a bit of a Terry Gilliam kick near the end of the year, mainly because I was preparing to watch one of my favorite Christmas movies, Brazil, and I realized I had never seen Time Bandits, and it looked kind of cool and interesting, and I watched it, and yeah, it was pretty cool and interesting. Such an imaginative world and design, and really it's kind of kicking myself for thinking, you know, if I loved Brazil so much, why didn't I watch the other movies in this so-called imagination trilogy? That one was a lot of fun, very trippy, definitely not just a kids movie. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with that one. Number 5 is Mad Max 2, also known as the Road Warrior. So there may have been a reason why I watched all the Mad Max movies, and yeah, funnily enough, I'd actually not seen Mad Max 2 and Beyond Thunderdome. Back when Fury Road came out, I meant to watch all of them, and I had watched original Mad Max, the 70s one. I just never really got around to watching the other two. But I loved Mad Max 2 a lot. Very good. I thought it still held up really well in its own way. It's obviously not the same type of movie as Fury Road, but just I was really impressed with how they did it, and the way it was shot, and for such a not crazy big budget movie. Almost like a bit of a Western in some regards to it. And that's what I liked. There was a certain other movie that came out this year that held true to Mad Max 2's style, and what could that be? I don't know. I guess we'll have to check out my list a bit later, shall we? Number 4 is Jaws. Yes, indeed. I had actually not seen Jaws until this year. It just was one of those ones I never got around to, and yeah, it's a pretty good movie. You know, it's definitely one of Spielberg's best, and it is a very intense thrill ride. I was just super into it again the whole time. I love how once they're out on the water, it's like you're there. There's no side story cutting back to the mainland. It's like, no, you're on the boat. You're out on the ocean. You're stuck there. So I really like that a lot. That it's like you're out there on the water and you're in it, you're in the zone, and this is a very entertaining movie indeed. Definitely see why it's regarded as one of the biggest movies of all time. Number 3, while we're talking about Spielberg, is Munich. This is a movie I'd been meaning to get around to for quite a long time, but the reviews of it were never super crazy high praising. They were just kind of like, oh yeah, it's a movie he made, and it was good, and it was up for some Oscars. I did not expect to be like floored and emotionally drained and devastated by how well made and well done this movie was. Obviously, a movie about a Israeli-Palestinian conflict is, shall we say, something that is still unfortunately very relevant to this day. So, yeah, that's a thing. And just watching that with like all the news going on, it was just very, still more relevant as it was then as it is now. It's a movie that came out in 2005 and about an event from the 70s, and I'm watching it in 2024, and it's just the cycle keeps going, and it made me very sad in that way. And I just think this was like, for me, it was absolute masterpiece. I love it so much. I don't know if this one's going to end up on my top 100. We'll see. I might update that once every year, perhaps, but I guess I can safely say this is one of my favorite underrated Spielberg movies, because not many people would rank it this high above something like Jaws, but I would. Number 2 is The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. So, we talked about Time Bandits earlier, and then this is the other one in the Imagination trilogy that I had not seen. And this one also blew me away. It was so entertaining and funny, but investing, such a great style to it. I guess everyone who worked on this movie hated it. Maybe it was a crazy, insane, difficult production, but I love the way that this movie turned out. I talked about this in my top 100 movies list when I talked about Brazil, that was a movie where I was barely an hour in, and I'm like, this movie's going to have to screw up really hard for me to give it anything less than 5 stars. And that was where I felt about this one. So I guess I need to check out more Terry Gilliam films, seeing as he has done 3 of my favorites already. Monty Python and the Holy Grail, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and Brazil. So now we can add Time Bandits and Adventures of Baron Munchausen to that. I remember watching The Zero Theorem, not being super into it. I might need to give it another shot. And then I know he did a couple other ones like Brothers Grimm or Imagination of Dr. Parnassus, whatever it was. I haven't really checked those ones out. And I didn't realize it was him who directed The Fisher King. I have yet to see that one. But this one was good. Definitely Imagination, that's for sure. And my number 1 favorite movie of 2024 that was new to me, that didn't come out in 2024, was, well, it was pretty obvious for me. It was no contest. It is Lawrence of Arabia. I had not ever sat down to watch this 4-hour movie in the desert. But again, there may have been another movie that came out that prompted me to finally go and watch this movie. What one could that be? Oh, I don't know. We'll get to it, all right. But yeah, I was like blown away. It really is one of like the best movies of all time. This is definitely going on to my top 100 list when I update it to account for newer movies that I have seen. Just, it's always nice when you go and you watch some really old movie that you know is a classic and everybody loves, and you watch it and you're just like, yeah, this holds up in every way, and I see why everybody loves it. And so many of my already favorite movies were inspired by this one, but they don't feel derivative, or they don't make this movie feel like it's now, not needed because somebody came along and did it better. It stands on its own. Yeah, I like movies that take place in the desert and have lots of long, boring shots of desert. So this totally nailed it for me in that regard, and I was not bored one bit. I almost wanted to watch it again right after I watched a 4-hour movie. I'm going to need to check out more David Lean movies because I have still yet to see The Bridge on the River Kwai. But I did love Medal of Honor Rising Sun, which had a reference to that. And I have yet to see like Dr. Zhivago or some of his other ones. Not everyone's super into those movies, but I don't know. If they're anything like this, I might be down for it. We'll have to see. So thanks for bearing with me on that. Those are my favorite non-2024 films that were new to me. And let's get on with the list. But again, there's going to be a little twist because I'm not just doing my top 10 movies of the year. I'm going to go over every movie I saw in 2024 that was a new release. Because this way you don't have to ask me, what did you think of this movie? Or have you seen this movie? Because if it's on the list, you'll hear me talk about it. And if it's not on the list, then you know I haven't seen it yet. There will probably be a lot of movies that I missed out on because I don't get to go see every movie released this year. I'm just a dude that goes to the movies and watches them when they come out online. I don't get invited to critic shows. I don't get advanced screenings. So there's a lot of movies that I know are up for big awards like The Brutalist and A Real Pain and what's it, Sing Sing. I haven't seen those released anywhere around in my area, or they're not on streaming yet. So if a movie gets up for an Oscar, I will of course eventually do a Best Picture nominees video ranked, but we'll have to wait on those. And so that's the unfortunate thing. It would really make more sense for me to do this list in February, but then no one's really going to care about it then. So, let's get ready to do our entire movies of 2024 ranked. Now, bear with me on this. I mentioned earlier, I'm a biased person, okay? My lowest, least liked movie of the year was actually one I literally just watched earlier today. And I was not looking forward to watching it because it's not my style of movie. And I just did not care. But I had a feeling this one is going to be up for a lot of awards. So I bit the bullet on it and watched it. And that is Wicked, part 1 of 2. So if you liked the movie Wicked and you loved it, that is great, okay? You're not wrong for that. You're allowed to like it. I see so many people online raving about how much they like this movie, and how it was a masterpiece, and defying gravity made them feel like they were defying gravity, and that's great, okay? But that was not me with this movie. I'm not an Ariana Grande fan. She was good in the movie because her character is kind of meant to be disliked a bit. And Cynthia Erivo was really good, and the music is good. I mean, don't worry, the music's top. I'm not going to argue with that. But I just didn't like the filmmaking, the way it was shot. The cinematography, not really good. Felt way too overlong. This movie's 20 minutes longer than 2001: A Space Odyssey. And it's only a part 1. Yeah, it's not my style. I'm not into it. I didn't enjoy it. But the music is good, and the acting was nice, and I liked the sets when I could see them. So this is not really for me, this movie, though. So I admit it. I watched it because I knew it would be up for a lot of awards. So again, if you love Wicked the musical, which I've never watched the Broadway show, and you like Wicked the movie, that's great. This was made for you guys. This was not made for me. But I did watch it, and I didn't enjoy it, so it is at the bottom of my own list. Okay? Don't get mad at me for that. You understand? Okay? Okay. We good? Moving on now. Let's talk about one we can all agree on. Next up we had was Megalopolis. So I gave this one 2.5 because I'm not really sure where to rank it. Did I enjoy it? Did I not? Is it so bad it's good? Is it just so bad it's bad? I'm not sure. I need to rewatch it, I think, but I'm also not very motivated to rewatch it, you know? Maybe I just need to go back to the club and figure it out for myself. It was kind of a hot mess, this movie. So yeah, I'm not sure what to think, so it goes here. Usually I reserve 2.5 stars for my I don't know what to decide rating. Oh well. Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. This was a movie where there's nothing really bad about it, apart from a really terrible Winston Churchill impersonator. It's just I felt it didn't go anywhere. Like, I liked the setup and the style, and it was interesting. But, you know, we got to the third act of the movie, and then all of a sudden it was over. I kind of felt like there wasn't enough tension or stakes to a suspense action thriller movie. You know, I need to be wondering what's going to happen, and this movie didn't really do that at the end. But it had some pretty hot people in it. There was a lot of good-looking dudes. Really hate to say it, but Henry Cavill looks damn good in that uniform. You know, so yeah. Overall, I'm just like, that was good. Next up, Maxine. Definitely a bit of a disappointing end to the X trilogy. I do like the style to it. They were going for emulating that 80s Jalo style, that very grungy, dirty look. And there's a Judas Priest song that's a very underrated one, Prisoner of Your Eyes. That gets a lot of points from me. But yeah, Maxine isn't much of a character in this. What's the point of renting out the Psycho Hotel if you're not even going to do anything with it? Elizabeth Debicki's kind of there to be there. I mean, I got to see Lily Collins get her head chopped off. That's an ass. Yeah, but ultimately at the end I was kind of just like, oh, that's it. So, yeah, it's good. Next up, another one I might get a bit of hate for is, next one for me is Deadpool and Wolverine. I don't know, man, I wasn't into it. There are a lot of people raving about how great this was and how so cool it was, but I wasn't into it. I'm watching the movie and everyone else in the theater's laughing and I'm just half chuckling. I didn't think the movie was nearly as clever nor funny as it thought it was. I also don't think trying to get me to feel overly nostalgic for Jennifer Gardner's Elektra, Wesley Snipes' Blade, and the non-existent Channing Tatum Gambit really got me. I also think it's a really big insult to my intelligence that they tried to get me with a big feels emotional ending, but they set it to Good Riddance, Time of Your Life by Green Day. Do people not remember that that's not meant to be like some heartfelt song? It's a, hope you had a good time, but Good Riddance. They still play that song at graduation marches, and it's like the point, your head. Oh well. Yeah, I just didn't find it funny or entertaining. Not nearly as much as the first two Deadpool movies. It just felt kind of a little tiresome, It's a fun comedy action movie, and I didn't have that much fun, and I just was like complaining in my brain, so it did not succeed to entertain me. What can I say? Guess I'm just a cynic. But it's funny that I'm nagging on this fan servicey movie, and then later on there's a movie that was very fan servicey for me that I'm gonna rave about. So again, I did say I was biased. Next up is Longlegs. This is a movie I was really hoping to like, and again, it's not bad, right? I want to explain my ratings, right? 3 stars is my middle ground, it's good rating, or it is well made. But yeah, I don't really understand the hype around this one. I was really hoping to be invested in it, and it had a pretty decent setup to it. But there was a lot of what I just felt was generic horror movie filmmaking 101, and ultimately it just didn't really do it for me. Kind of lost me in the end. It just kind of felt like, why am I not just watching Silence of the Lambs or Seven or Zodiac? these movies did that, but better. So, oh well, I find there's usually always like one horror movie a year that everyone hypes up and I kind of just feel meh about. And then there's a horror movie that comes out that I'm like, screaming from the balcony, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. So, Longlegs was this year's it's okay movie. Next up is Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I had hopes that this one would be good, but I kind of knew in the back of my mind I just want it to be decent. And, it was not as much of a masterpiece as the other recent Apes movies, but it had a cool style to it. I liked the acting. It was an interesting world. And it's one I've been meaning to watch again to really get everything out of it. I just haven't really gotten around to it, but perhaps if they make another entry in the franchise, I might check it out. So it reminded me of Horizon Zero Dawn a lot, so that is good too. Next up we have The Fall Guy. So I had fun with this movie. It was entertaining, it had some fun bits to it, and I enjoyed it. It is interesting because this is one where I've seen people have complained that this extended cut of it wasn't good. That's the version I watched, and I liked it, but maybe I guess I would have liked it more if I saw the theatrical. I've heard that this extended cut ruins the pacing. I wouldn't know. I've only seen this long version, and I thought it was fun, and I enjoyed it. Next up, the animated Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim. It was a movie I was very worried about when, it was like only a couple months to release, and they hadn't released any footage of it. And then when they did, it opened with footage of live action Lord of the Rings before transitioning to animation. That was very much too nostalgia baity for me. And then there was the fact that the animation was not looking like this is a theatrical released movie. This looks like something that should be direct for streaming or like a movie from the 80s. So with all that said in mind, I watched it right after watching the Lord of the Rings trilogy as well, and I enjoyed it, actually. Really my main issue with the film is I don't like the directing, sort of, shall we say, the way the shots were done. Like I think of a battle scene in this movie where there was just not a good job of communicating to me, the viewer, like where was everybody in relation to everybody? What was the spatial awareness, shall we say? Whereas compared to like Lord of the Rings, there's a very good sense of where you are. I feel like even if you haven't seen a map of Middle Earth, you can kind of get a good sense of where everybody is because the film does a good job of communicating this to you. And War of the Rohirrim did not really do a good job of giving me a spatial understanding of the topography of the map. I would just say if you took this same story, gave it a better animation budget, gave it like a anime director on the level of like Hayao Miyazaki, you could have yourself a pretty good one here. Will I be rewatching it? Maybe. I do think Hera is a really awesome character. I mean, she like takes down how many elephants in the movie? Like, yeah, she's great. Helm Hammerhead's badass. This wolf guy is despicably evil. So I enjoyed it. And I am not a Silmarillion reader, nor am I somebody who is a random YouTube commenter acting like he hung out with J.R.R. Tolkien at a cafe every day for most of his life. So I don't know if this movie's existence like takes a giant heap on the lore. Maybe it does, but regardless, I enjoyed the experience. Am I gonna watch season 2 of Rings of Power? That's a question for another day. Next up is Love Lies Bleeding. Very fun movie about being gay and doing crime. Great performances from everyone all around, especially Kirsten Stewart. 80s movies, well, that is, movies with the 80s nostalgia are always fun, especially when they're like a good balance, not like over the top, or at the point where it feels like a parody. Like, this was a good one. Kind of goes all over the place in some funny, crazy ways. So, yeah, I enjoyed this a lot. I think I might need to rewatch it. I might even bump it up a bit more. Number 18 is The Apprentice. It's a movie about a guy, a person of sorts, of some kind of importance. Yeah, I may or may not have watched this at a certain time in the year. Here's the thing. Yeah, Sebastian Stan does a really great job as the character. He's great. I really hope he doesn't get too overshadowed by the fact of who he's playing in the movie. And I like the way it's shot. It feels very vintage while not feeling gimmicky. And it is kind of an interesting sort of character evolution to see him go from the, bright-eyed character to more relating to the person we know. And it's definitely meant to be like a little just sort of more like, hey, here's a story. It doesn't really take too much sides one way or the other, I would say. And that's probably going to annoy some people who want to see it go one way or the other. So yeah, I would say it's a pretty well-made, well-done movie. I just don't think it was investing to warrant necessarily a rewatch. It's not as tragic in that way. But yeah, definitely interesting to say the least. Too bad they couldn't have waited until the main character in this movie died, so it could have had a happy ending like the Margaret Thatcher movie. Am I right? Hey. Yeah. I am glad I live in Canada. For now. Next up is a movie that's on a lot of people's best of the years list, and it didn't quite make mine, and that's Anora. It was a movie I enjoyed, and I liked the style, but I kind of felt conflicted on the message the movie was trying to get across and what I took away as an audience member. And what I mean by that is the vibe I got from this movie was kind of a sort of a gender-swapped Martin Scorsese style of movie. As he's usually always making movies about a bunch of dudes who go into a mob, they get a bunch of hot ladies with them, and we're supposed to kind of, interpret as an audience, hey, maybe this guy ain't making the best choices in life, maybe he should do something different, or maybe he's not that cool of a person. And so I felt watching Anora like I was essentially watching one of those movies, but told from the perspective of the hot girl that the main gangsta guy picks up on his quest to become the best person ever. And so for this whole beginning section of the movie, I'm thinking, girl, run. This guy doesn't even know how to play PlayStation or Xbox properly. That's the most fakest video game in a movie playing that I've ever seen. But there's a lot of montages and upbeat music, and I'm like, is it meant to be that the movie's trying to convince me that this is a good thing? Or is it meant to be like, well, from her perspective, this is the best moment of her life, but I'm supposed to know, it's all gonna go south, right? So I felt it was a little meandering in the beginning. But then there's that second chunk in the middle of the movie where they're going on the adventure, and it's basically like Sean Baker took the donut shop scene from Tangerine and expanded it to a whole act of a movie. That was pretty good. I liked that. Wasn't sure how I felt about the ending to the movie, though. I didn't really like to what it was building up to, but it has a couple interesting things to say. So ultimately, I think Anora is a pretty good movie, but I'm kind of conflicted on how I feel on it. So it's not one of my personal favorites of the year. Might end up being a big awards darling, we shall see. But in either case, this is where it is on my ranked list. Next up is Inside Out 2. This was a very good movie and a very good sequel. I may have enjoyed it more than the first one, actually. Because the first one was good, but there was a couple little details here or there, little things just keeping me from fully loving it. And I feel like this one I didn't have as much to complain about. So I think I gave them both the same rating, 4 stars, but it was pretty good. I mean, if Inside Out 2 was just the anxiety attack scene alone, it would probably be one of my most I feel seen movies, because I felt very seen during that scene. Definitely had a lot of moments like that in my life. It kind of, made me feel the feels, that's for sure. So, yeah, this one was pretty good. I enjoy it. My only complaint is that it is not my favorite animated movie of the year, but it will be the one getting all the attention. Because I think it's like the highest grossing animated movie of all time, which is really crazy to think about, you know. But I thought this one was a pretty good one and had a lot of great moments to it. Number 15 is Challengers, the tennis movie. Another one that's kind of may or may not be an awards darling, and I enjoyed it a lot. I got really invested in it. I liked the soundtrack. I liked the style. There's the other movie that Luca Guadagnino, how do you say his name? The guy who did the Suspiria remake. He had another movie come out this year called Queer, which I have not seen yet because it's not really around to watch yet. But this one was also really good, and I was into it, and yeah, and it's kind of hard to say sometimes, like, what did you like about this movie? Well, I watched the movie and I liked it. That's what I have to say, right? Sometimes it's easier to explain why I didn't like something than to explain why I liked it. Right? Number 14 is Conclave. This is another big awards movie, and I really liked it a lot. I'm very excited to see certain groups of people get upset by this movie. That is good for sure. Ray Fiennes was great. Loved the style to it. Again, just really drawn it. I didn't think I would get that much invested in a movie about a bunch of cardinals and priests determining who the new pope's going to be. But it was actually really great. If I had one complaint about the movie, it would be that there were a few too many times it delved in too much into the whole we're an Oscar baity movie, some speech about unity and diversity and acceptance, please give us awards, look how preachy we are. Like, don't get me wrong, I like movies that are like that. I think it's good that you can just openly say, hey, here's a movie about how maybe we shouldn't be a bunch of discriminatory bastards, you know? Something that certain people in certain countries could use a little more of these days. My downstairs neighbors, if you know what I mean. I'm Canadian, by the way. But there's just a couple points where it kind of felt like, you know, it was like made to be award speech stuff, not necessarily made to be what it is. That's all. I just kind of felt there was a couple bits where it took me out a little. Like, it felt so on the nose. And like, okay, I see you see the Oscar over there. You're reaching for it right now. That's what you're doing. But hey, if that does end up winning this movie Oscars, I'd be okay with that, because then more people will have to watch it, and more people will get upset by the ending. If you know, you know. Number 13, Memoir of a Snail. Wow, what a really good one. There was another movie that didn't make my top films of the 2024, non-2024 movies, which was Mary and Max, but that one was pretty close. I think that was like number 12 or 11, I think. So that one was pretty close to making it, because I went and I watched that movie because of this movie was coming out, and it's from the same guy, the stop motion guy, Adam Elliott, and wow, are those both great movies. I think I prefer Mary and Max to this one, but this one was great too. You know, it's got an inventive, fun, colorful style, just such a weird, unique world. It seems to me that I get more out of non-Wes Anderson directors who have Wes Anderson-like qualities than the actual Wes Anderson, so make of that what you will. But, yeah, what a fun, creative, imaginative world that manages to be funny, charming, and still get you in the feels. Just overall great experience of a movie. Number 12 is Civil War. It was a movie I was definitely worried about, because I thought, why would you take such a cool setup for a movie and turn it into what is essentially a zombie apocalypse road trip movie where characters need to get from a dangerous area to another area across a war-torn landscape, you know, a la Children of Men, Last of Us style. But there was a lot more to the movie than that, and people definitely got a little too caught up in the, is this kind of movie that's all like, oh yeah, screw all them dumb leftists, yeah, we need more guns? Or is it going to be some movie that's like, did you know that this is a movie about Donald Trump? And they're saying that he's not good? And it wasn't really any of those things. Just sort of created a situation that spoke for itself. It was trying to take this idea of like war-torn Civil War and put it in America so you could actually relate to it more. But all it ended up doing was people got more divided over it. So, yeah, it's Alex Garland. He has not had any misses for me yet, and he keeps doing his thing, so that's pretty good. I think it's not on the short list for best sound, though. It's crazy, man, because when Jesse Plemons showed up, whew, damn. And the final honorable mention before we get to the actual top 10 is a very fun, entertaining comedy, Saturday Night. Of course, about the creation and origin of Saturday Night Live. Not a movie I was expecting to like, because I don't really know much Saturday Night Live. I certainly don't know the history about it and who even the main actors and actresses were back in the day. Like I knew George Carlin, John Belushi, Chevy Chase. That's about it, right? And I was worried the movie would be a little bit too like nostalgia baity in that I was supposed to see a person and based off their appearance like, oh, that's the thing I remember from seeing on the TV in the 70s. And it actually wasn't that. Like, I'm sure if I knew my knowledge, I would get a lot more out of it. And when I went and researched it and saw how there were hints to, like, the sketches that would be aired on original Saturday Night and how they recreated some of these scenes, it was quite impressive. But that was not required for me to enjoy the film. And, I mean, it was a fun ride, it was entertaining. Kind of has that Birdman, Babylon style of energy to it, which is always very fun and very good indeed. And main guy whose name I forget, but he was also in The Fabelmans. He's great. You got Cooper Hoffman in it. The guy's playing like young, was it Billy Crystal or young George Carlin, young John Belushi. They're great. So well done. Yeah, what can I say? I had a lot of fun with it. It made me go out and watch a bunch of episodes of Saturday Night Live, so I would say if this was meant to be like a fun love letter to Saturday night, mission accomplished. You did a good job with that indeed. Alright, now we get on to the top 10. What made the list? Well, number 10 is Monkey Man. This is a action movie from director and actor Dev Patel, who of course I already loved a lot in The Green Knight. And I mean, the thing that most people will boil it down to is, oh, it's Indian John Wick. It's John Wick, but it takes place in India, and it's got elements of like Hinduism in it, and it's a lot more to it than that. I feel like that's kind of selling the movie a little short, not really getting into the nitty-gritty of it. What it does have is a scene where Dev Patel trains a shirtless set to that one guy doing all the tabla drums. And I don't know his name, but I know he's a pretty famous player, this tabla drum guy, so you're cool. And this is the movie where you get to see Dev Patel fight a bunch of cops with his army of transgendered monks set to sort of Indian death metal. Like, that automatically right there has got to make it top 10 material alone. So yeah, it's a fun, well done, high, energetic action movie with like lots of story and lore to it, and lots of pretty attractive people in it. So yeah, that's a good way to get my attention, alright. Definitely loved it a lot. Number 9 is Kinds of Kindness. It was a movie I thought was pretty good the first time I watched it, and on the rewatch I liked it even more. For some reason, this one gives me Eyes Wide Shut vibes, and I don't really know why. Not just for the fact that there's a weird, creepy sex cult in the third part of the movie. It's like, something about it. It's like it's kind of got a weird dreamlike feel to it. It's just shot in such an interesting way. It's a 2-hour, 40-minute movie that keeps me invested throughout the whole way. There's a bit of weird comedy to it. Soundtrack is so strange. There's just a lot to it that just really keeps me into it. I don't know what to say. Something about Yorgos Lanthimos. I like the way his characters are deadpan. It's weird when he does it. I like it, but when Wes Anderson does it, I don't like it. And here it creates kind of a weird, uncomfortable, dreamlike feeling. Characters talking like, "Oh, it was really good. Thank you very much for the party last night. I really enjoyed it a lot. In fact, I've been reading this book you recommended to me. It's a pretty good book indeed." That gives me weird vibes, whereas when Wes Anderson does it, it's just like, "This here is my ship. It was founded in the year 1957 and we rescued it from the Indian Ocean waters. It was a pretty difficult task, and my best buddy Jim, he died then. He's dead now." Here's a close-up shot of his grave. Moving on, we set sail for the high seas this way. For some reason, that doesn't appeal to me as much. I don't know. Yeah, this one was pretty good. Liked it a lot. Number 8, The Wild Robot. Told you we'd get some more animated movies that weren't Inside Out 2. Yeah, this was one that surprised me. I heard it was pretty good, and I watched it, and yeah, it's a pretty good one, man. Great acting, voice acting, animation style. Love the world design. Also love it. This movie's kind of dark, kind of violent. It did not really shy away from the fact that nature is nature, you know. So, yeah, that was a fun one indeed. Probably will give that one a rewatch. Really enjoyed it a lot. Number 7 is I Saw the TV Glow, a movie that may be on the bottom of some people's lists, but it's near the top of mine. It was one that only got better on the rewatch. Something about it, again, just very captivating, just in the zone. Love the style to it. Such a great emotional resonance I felt with this one. It will get a lot of critiques for being a very A24 film. But none of that bothered me. I was really into it. There's kind of like, metaphor about the movie potentially being about being trans. And for some people, they did not get that. I felt I got it right away, right when I saw the weird little, the little umbrella thing had like the trans flag colors on it. I was like, if this was in the 90s, it would just be a regular rainbow. Why is it specifically trans flag colors? I feel like the movie's trying to tell me something. So you can kind of give it that interpretation. And if you do, it's a very good movie. Really liked it a lot. I just love thinking about it. It's been on my mind. And the soundtrack is great too. Definitely got to check out some more of these artists. And it finally was the one that showed me who Phoebe Bridgers is, because I don't pay attention to Phoebe Bridgers. I was mistaking her for a character from Friends. It's Phoebe from Friends. Phoebe Bridgers, the musician, and Phoebe Waller-Bridges, the actress. These are all different people, apparently. This one's pretty good. But I can understand if it was not really for everybody. Number 6 is The Substance, one of the most fun times I've had watching a movie. I really wanted to watch it for New Year's Eve, but no one else in my family wanted to watch it. You mean you don't want to watch a 2-hour, 20-minute body horror movie? What? Who doesn't want to watch that, But all jokes aside, this one was really fun. I love the style to it. I watched the first film from Coraline Farget. How do you say her last name? It's French, I know, right? Me being, Canadian, I'm half fake French, right? I should know this. Yeah, that was a really good one. Revenge, really liked the style to it. Did not make my top non-24 films, but it was pretty close. And this one was just a step up in every way. I mean, it's part Cronenberg, part Lynchian. This. It's been a very popular movie that's gotten very strong word of mouth reception and praise, so that is good. I'm really hoping this gets nominated for Oscars, so that people are forced to watch it. And that's going to be hilarious if they have to, reference it in some way, shape, or form. So yeah, what can I say? This was one that blew me away. I went in knowing literally nothing. Like, this is a movie called The Substance. I heard it was good, and I went and watched it and loved it. That is what I mean. Longlegs disappointed me. The substance pleasantly surprised me. Very great indeed. Number 5, Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. Remember when I said I was rewatching all the Mad Max movies? Well, this was the reason why. It was to prepare for Furiosa, and yeah, this was a pretty damn good epic movie indeed. I like how they did not just try to remake Mad Max Fury Road. This is its own movie. Maybe a 9-year wait was a little bit too long, but in the end I would say it was pretty worth it. Even if I had to suffer through that Genie movie first, 3,000 Years of Longing. Didn't really dig it. Sorry. But the visuals are pretty. Yeah, I liked how this one almost kind of went back to old school Mad Max, giving it much more of that epic Western revenge movie feel that they didn't really have in Fury Road so much, per se. It just, I don't know how to describe it, it just felt like it was similar but different, and it wasn't too hard on the prequelitis-ness of needing to remember this from the original. There was a good balance in there. If I had one critique, it would just be that some of the visual effects are a little more CG heavy than Fury Road, but Fury Road does have a lot of CG in it. People just don't talk about it because it blends in nicely in the background. And casting Anya Taylor-Joy as young Charlize Theron, that's great too. And Chris Hemsworth, he was having so much fun in this role as Dementus. I liked that we got to see more of all those little interesting background character details from Fury Road. It felt like a good natural expansion. Like, we got to see Gastown, and we got to spend more time with all these weird, creepy weirdos and see more into how really messed up Praetorian Jack, that's the runner guy, Immortan Joe's evil, creepy cult was. We got to see the Citadel more. I was worried that this would be a movie that would be 90% randomness and then 10% thrown in at the end to connect it, but there was a lot of connecting threads, very well written in that regard. So yeah, this one was pretty awesome too. What can I say? And spoiler alert for Furiosa, but we got Doof Warrior cameo. Doof Warrior, yeah. Okay, number 4 is Nosferatu. Now, realistically, this one should be higher than number 4. The one thing I have to talk about, which I hate dwelling on, but it really is unfortunately linked intrinsically to my experiences, when I saw Nosferatu, it was probably the worst theater experience I had, ever. There was delays with the projector. The movie started 40 minutes late. People were talking constantly, yapping, laughing at serious scenes. Somebody was taking flash photography of the screen. People were kicking my seat, leaning back so I had no legroom. Basically, everyone around me was being a very not considerate human being, despite me protesting and glaring. I really am thankful that because of that projector issue, I got given a free ticket. So essentially, that movie experience was a write-off. How was Nosferatu? It's a pretty good movie. It's very well shot, well acted. I enjoy it a lot. It's just, I feel I need to get the real version of it, without the commentary track of a bunch of, yappy bastards. Not to dwell on it, but side rant, why do you pay money to go buy snacks and go to a movie and sit in a movie and yap and talk and get up and walk around for 20 minutes and come back? You can't go to a Madonna concert or something? You can't go somewhere good? Go to the library? I don't know, that frustrates me, man. I need to start yelling at people more. Apparently I really should have. I think I was in the right. I just have a feeling that if I, get mad at people who are inconsiderate, that they're just going to laugh and not actually be like, oh, actually you're right, yeah, we shouldn't be yapping and talking and on our phones and taking flash photography photos of the screen in a movie. We should be quiet, I don't think that's going to happen. Anyway, sorry, the point is Nosferatu was a very great movie, but I knew I was going to be biased, and I knew I was going to love it, because I love everything Robert Eggers has done. It was really fun to see how he expanded upon elements from the 20s silent film. I still have not yet seen the Werner Herzog Nosferatu. Apparently I should check that out, because apparently it's pretty good. So I can't compare this to that. If I had one critique for Nosferatu that I could say, besides the fact that my experience watching it was garbage, it's that this has the least individual identity of Robert Eggers' movies, because it is a remake of a 20s silent film that in of itself was an unofficial, unauthorized, unlicensed adaptation of a book from the 1890s, right? So his other movies have felt very like original and have a cool style to them, and this one still got that, but you can see where he's really heavily riffing off of ideas from the other versions of this story, and it's in the nature of it, it's a remake, right? If I had to be very nitpicky on it, right? So I think this film could rank higher when I do watch it again and get the proper experience, but I guess we'll just have to wait until that time, and we might get a director's cut. Hell yeah, that's good. Oh yeah. Number 3 is Hundreds of Beavers. And you can see I have rated this 4.5. I think I might need to bump it up to a 5. But I've been waiting to watch it with a group of friends so I can see their reaction. This is such a fun, entertaining movie, so creative and inventive. It's the movie that makes me go, cinema. Absolute nothing like it. As you can see, it has a 2022 release date, but it only came out to us plebeians this year, so I'm counting it. Most people are, I think. It was just so much fun, entertaining. One part video game logic, one part silent film slapstick. The funniest part was, so if you don't know, the main girl in the movie is played by a person whose name escapes me, but I know that her like channel name is The Witch of Wonderlust, and she does like pole dancing and witchy related stuff on like Instagram and other social medias. And so I showed this movie to my wife, and she pointed that out, like, that's the Witch of Wonderlust, what's she doing here? It's like, what? Oh, it totally is. Like, we were totally tripped out by that. Like, are we hallucinating? So that was a pretty great moment, you know. That's just one moment of many in the film that are just so brilliant and hilarious. So this one would technically, I think, be a 5-star movie, which if we were going by like just in order of stars, that would actually put it at number 2, not number 3. And again, I've ranked it above Nosferatu because watching this movie was fun and entertaining. Watching Nosferatu with that horrible theater experience was not, unfortunately. So what's above this? What's above Hundreds of Beavers? Well, it's 2 movies that are super obvious, and I knew they were going to be my top movies, and so far nothing has surpassed them yet. And I did say when I was talking about my least favorite movies that I was biased, so now when talking about my favorite movies, I will be hella biased as well. And like I said, there may or may not have been a hint in the background this whole time of telling you what number 2 is, and that is Alien Romulus. So again, technically, if I put Hundreds of Beavers at 5 stars, it would be ahead. But why isn't it? Well, Alien Romulus, I'm given a 4.5 to show that it is a slight bit under the 5-star Alien movies. That is, for me, Alien, Aliens, and Alien 3. And it is above the 4-star Alien movies. That is, Alien Covenant and Alien Resurrection. You got me? So this is how I do stars on Letterboxd normally. I don't really like stars that much. I know it's a key component of the system, but like for me it has to be stars in terms of what the film is. So, you know, for me, Alien Romulus is actually like a 5-star great movie. I love it. But it's a 4.5-star Alien movie because it's not as good as Alien or Aliens, which are 5 stars, so I have to show that this one is a slight step down from them, so it gets 4.5. You got me? And if I did have a critique about the film, it's the critique most people have made, that yes, it is very heavily referential, which means it doesn't have as much of its own identity. But I still feel it has a distinct visual style to it to put it apart from the other ones. And I've watched this movie 4 times already this year, and I've loved it. And I have a few complaints, but I have complaints about all the Alien movies, and that's okay. It's still my favorite franchise of all time. I was really hoping that this would be a straightforward, back-to-basics Alien movie with lots of Alien isolation inspiration, and they totally did that. I think it's funny how the least scary part about the movie was the xenomorphs. They managed to make every other stage in its evolution more terrifying. Didn't get any eggs though. No eggs in the movie. Could use that. And are they implying that there was a queen there and we just didn't see her? Kind of like Alien Isolation implies that there was a queen and we just didn't see her? I don't know. So again, totally 100% biased Alien fanboy, went and saw the fan servicey Alien movie and he loved it. Right? I know. Crazy. But hey, it's my list. That's how it is. What can I say? I love the Alien movies and I loved what they did with this one. And here's to see what they'll do next. And then, of course, number 1, if you've been paying attention, y'all should know what it is. The fact that my number 1 new movie for me was a very long, boring movie taking entirely place in a desert should have been a tip-off for you what it was. Yeah, I even thought about opening the video by just being like, welcome to my top movies list. We're going to go through all of my Dune Part 1, Part 2, Dune Part 2. It's Dune Part 2. Of course it was going to be Dune Part 2. I loved Dune Part 1. I fanboyed over it. I read the book. I was so hyped for Part 2. I went and I saw it. I've watched it 4 or 5 times already this year. It's just great. I love it so much. If I could count these both as one singular film, definitely into my top movies for sure. I just can't do that yet because it's too soon, right? And I don't know if I'm allowed to count that as one movie. Because they were 2 movies made at different times, but they're both adaptations of the same book, right? It's not like Lord of the Rings, where I don't count those as one movie, even though they're all filmed at the same time, because each one is a distinct book. Whereas this is one book, 2 parts, right? I don't know. We'll get to that. The point is I like science fiction, and I love Dune, and I love Denis Villeneuve films, and I like films in the desert, and this was all of that combined. And as of the making of this movie, as of the making of this ASMR video, movie has managed to top the fun experience I've had with watching Dune Part 2. Alien Romulus and Hundreds of Beavers were pretty close. Again, I do need to properly watch Nosferatu, hopefully. And again, you've seen every movie that I watched this year now. So if you didn't see a certain movie, the answer is I haven't seen it yet. And I will try to get around to more in January and February. But again, it's unfortunate that a lot of those big top of the year lists, critics' choices, Golden Oscar Globes movies don't come out around here in the theaters or on streaming until late February, which limits my ability to talk about them in a year review video that comes out in start of January. So yeah, make of that what you will. In any case, thank you very much for going along this journey with me through all of the films I saw from 2024, plus a couple of old school ones on there. Again, it's my list, and I admit I'm heavily biased, so if you're surprised that I hated something or surprised that I loved something, well, that's just who I am. And that's how it happened, So, yeah, your list is still valid, and you are valid, right? Anyway, yeah, well, let's see what gets nominated for all the big Oscar awards, and then I guess I'll see you next time when we go over all those Best Picture nominees. And I'm holding out for Substance. Holding out for that one, that'd be fun. Anyway, hope you all enjoyed that, and I'll catch you next time. Have a good night.